And, we're nonpartisan, with your party, believe what you want. But in the end of the game, we're all equal. And let's treat each other as equals, from our hairstyles to the bathroom we want to use, to the ID that we have on our driver's license and where we play sports.
Hey there, I'm Jesse Fox Mayshark, and this is Headlights, Voices from the Progressive South. Headlights is a production of the Progressive South, a nonprofit media platform dedicated to amplifying progressive voices and values across the southern United States. You can find out more about us, including how to support our efforts, at our website, theprogressivesouth.org. The voice you heard up top was Dolores Wilk, Executive Director of Central Arkansas Pride, one of the leading LGBTQ advocacy groups in Arkansas. I talked with Wilk about the growth of Pride activities in the state and the ways they are combining celebration with political action. That conversation's coming up. Later in our Arts and Culture segment, we'll highlight a production in Jacksonville, Florida, of a play by one of the state's most acclaimed contemporary writers. But first, the news roundup. As always, you can find more information and sources in our show notes. This week, we'll talk about legal violations at a for-profit immigrant detention center in Louisiana, disappointed cannabis retailers in Virginia, and to kick things off, what looks like the final round of 2026 redistricting battles in the South. Specifically in Alabama. As we detailed last week, Alabama state officials were awaiting word from the U.S. Supreme Court on whether they could go ahead and redraw one of their two congressional districts that currently have black elected representatives. The answer, maybe not surprisingly, was yes. The same 6-member conservative Supreme Court majority that significantly weakened the 1965 Voting Rights Act with their Calais ruling in April extended and expanded that decision last week by allowing Alabama to use a congressional map that had been repeatedly found to be racially discriminatory by federal courts. Those courts included the Supreme Court itself, which in 2023 upheld a lower court's finding of racial discrimination. That led to the eventual adoption of the state's current map, which produced a district covering most of the historic Black Belt across the southern half of Alabama. That includes much of the state's traditional agricultural land and a concentration of black residents and voters. In 2024, that new district elected Congressman Shamari Figgers, a black Democrat from Mobile. After the Calais ruling, Alabama Republicans went back to court to see if they could now return to the original map drawn in 2022. But the same lower federal court that found that map racially discriminatory then still found it discriminatory last month, even taking Calais into account. The judges said it appeared drawn with the deliberate intent to disenfranchise black voters. But the Supreme Court, a majority of which had agreed the map was discriminatory just 3 years ago, now thinks it's fine. In an unsigned emergency order issued June 2nd, the 6 conservative justices affirmed that Alabama can go ahead and use the 2022 map. That will scramble multiple congressional districts and races in the state this year, but the primary effect is likely to be that the state's white Republicans will gain a congressional seat to the detriment of its black Democrats. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, in a blistering dissent, accused her conservative colleagues of disregarding not only their own recent rulings, but also the entire electoral process. She wrote, quote, "In addition to being wrong on the merits, the court's decision inflicts 2 grave harms on the public. It debases the democratic process by upending Alabama's entire election in the name of permitting Alabama to discriminate against black Alabamians. It also corrodes the rule of law by rewarding Alabama's gamesmanship and outright defiance of court orders," unquote. Her dissent was joined by her fellow liberal justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Speaking to the voting rights news site Democracy Docket, UCLA law professor Rick Hasen said the emergency order sent a stark signal about the broad scope of the Calais decision, which will make it difficult to ever prove racial discrimination in a redistricting case. He said, quote, "In these cases, plaintiffs will need to meet an impossible standard to prove effect, a standard which simply ignores the fact that when white Republicans discriminate against Democrats in the South, they are discriminating against black voters," unquote. That means the post-Calais fallout so far is the loss of 3 black-majority congressional districts in the South, one each in Tennessee, Louisiana, and Alabama. More are likely to follow in future years, along with black-majority districts in our state legislatures. A private prison in Louisiana being used to detain immigrants was found to be in violation of multiple federal standards in a report released last week by the Department of Homeland Security's own Inspector General. The report said that the Wynn Correctional Center in Winfield, Louisiana, quote, did not fully comply with reviewed standards for environmental health and safety, food service, use of force, medical care, classification, voluntary work program, legal access and materials, staff detainee communication, and outdoor recreation, unquote. Among the findings were that officers in separate reviewed incidents used a forbidden chokehold to restrain a detainee and used a pen to stab a detainee's hand, puncturing the skin, to get him to comply with an order. The report arrived in the midst of a wave of protest and hunger strikes by incarcerated immigrants across the country over the conditions at detention centers. There have been hunger strikes in 4 states, California, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, over rotten food, unsanitary conditions, lack of medical care, and abuse by officers. Predictably, the Department of Homeland Security downplayed the findings of its own inspectors, telling the Louisiana Illuminator they were, quote, minor infractions, unquote, but not directly addressing issues like use of force and sanitary conditions. Wynn Correctional Center is a place of note in the history of private prisons in the United States. It opened in 1990 as part of the Louisiana State Prison System and as the first privately managed medium-security prison in the country. Its original operator was the Corrections Corporation of America, the Tennessee-based company now known as CoreCivic. We devoted a whole episode to CoreCivic a while back, which I'll link in the show notes. Wynn Correctional Center is also where Mother Jones reporter Shane Bauer embedded as an employee for 4 months in 2014, eventually writing an article and award-winning book about his experience and the private prison industry more broadly. The next year, LaSalle Corrections took over management of the prison. In 2019, toward the end of the first Trump administration, it converted from holding state prisoners to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detainees. It holds 1,500 prisoners. It remained under ICE contract throughout the Biden administration, despite reports of abusive conditions. In 2024, about 200 detainees went on a hunger strike. In response, according to later reports, guards at the prison stormed in and filled the unit with pepper spray, then locked doors and windows and cut off power and water for several hours. LaSalle Corrections, which runs 18 prisons in Louisiana, Texas, and Georgia, has faced many complaints and findings of abuse at other facilities it operates. In 2023, it agreed to pay $7 million to the family of a woman who died in a jail the company ran in Texarkana, Texas. Reports showed the woman was denied necessary medication for HIV and bipolar disorder. Her health deteriorated drastically as her immune system crashed, and LaSalle staff apparently did nothing to help. The woman eventually went blind in prison, huddled on a blanket on the floor of her cell. By the time officers took her to the hospital, she was so emaciated she died soon after admission. In 2025, LaSalle paid an even larger sum to the family of a man who died of head injuries inflicted by guards at Richwood Correctional Center in Louisiana in 2015. A federal jury found that 3 guards employed by LaSalle had beaten the 57-year-old man, who had been arrested for disturbing the peace during an apparent mental health episode, so badly that they were liable for his death. The guards and LaSalle were ordered to pay $40 million to the man's adult children. Legal experts say it may be the largest award ever in a death in custody case. Nobody has been charged criminally in the man's death. By the time the jury reached that decision last year, Richwood was no longer serving as a local jail. Like the Wynn Correctional Center, LaSalle is now using it to house ICE detainees. The Virginia state legislature legalized cannabis for possession and use by state residents in 2021, but a long-promised creation of a retail marijuana marketplace has been stalled ever since. You can grow your own weed in Virginia, up to 4 plants per household, and you can give some to a friend, but you can't go down to a store and buy it. Democratic state legislators have introduced bills to create a legal system for licensing and taxing retail cannabis, but they were blocked for 4 years by Republicans in the legislature and governor's mansion. With the election last year of Democratic Governor Abigail Spanberger and Democratic control of both houses of the General Assembly, it looked like 2026 would be the year, especially since Spanberger had promised to sign cannabis legislation during her campaign. But it didn't turn out that way. Last month, Spanberger, a political centrist and former intelligence officer, vetoed a bill passed by the legislature that would have created a licensing system for cannabis retailers. Spanberger had wanted amendments to the bill to limit the number of stores allowed and also create new cannabis-related criminal penalties for various kinds of violations. Legislators resisted, so the governor killed the bill entirely. This was despite polls showing that about 70% of Virginians supported the bill, including sizable majorities of both Democrats and Republicans. It is likely the effort won't come up again until next year, further delaying retail sales in a state where weed has now been legal for 5 years. Okay, now we're to my interview with Dolores Wilk. Wilk, who uses they-them pronouns, is the executive director of Central Arkansas Pride, based in Little Rock. The group is one of the state's leading voices for LGBTQ rights and has been recognized for its work nationally. It has lobbied effectively at the state legislature, working to stop anti-LGBTQ bills, but that has gotten harder in recent years. Wilk is an Arkansas native who retired after a career with Target stores during years when the company was a corporate leader in LGBTQ inclusiveness. We had a good conversation about what's happening at the grassroots of Pride and LGBTQ groups in the state. As Wilk noted, 14 cities across Arkansas will have Pride celebrations this month. Central Arkansas Pride has relocated its 3-day Pride Festival to the streets in front of the state capitol to make queer people more visible and present to the people passing laws about them. We also talked about the late Arkansas drag queen legend Norman Jones, who performed as Norma Christie and for years owned and operated the Miss Gay America pageant after first winning it. Jones ran gay clubs that were central to Arkansas queer life for decades. I really enjoyed talking with Dolores. As you'll hear, they're just a very warm, welcoming, and caring voice in a place that needs it. So, Seth, let's go to the tape. All right, Dolores Wilk, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me today.
Happy Pride Month. We are recording on the first day. It's June 1st here. And I guess I would just like to, I want to hear about your work with Central Arkansas Pride. But first of all, I'd just like to hear a little bit about your own background. I know you grew up in Arkansas. What was it like for you growing up in Arkansas? What was your own kind of, journey toward understanding your own identity? And then at what point did that turn into engagement with sort of LGBTQ issues across the state?
Well, Jess, first off, thank you so much for having myself representing Central Arkansas Pride here on the broadcast today. I really appreciate it. My pronouns are they and them. I am a native Arkansan, grew up in North Little Rock, Arkansas, Catholic background. So that tells you a lot right there about the oppression throughout the years. But through Pride, I was able to find the Episcopalians. So that was a beautiful thing. I went to school at UALR, majoring in engineering. I finished up at Memphis State for you old-timers that are out there. I've been very fortunate to live on both sides of Tennessee, the great state. Memphis through my work with Target stores in Knoxville. So hi to all my Knoxville folks out there. Beautiful state and definitely some great people there in Knoxville. With my career with Target stores, I was able to travel and live in various places. Tennessee, Florida, worked in Georgia quite a bit. Target back in the day was very progressive. In the 2000s, I was able to get my partner on their health benefits by signing a document that we were domestic partners. So Target was very progressive back in the day, and that would be the 90s. Things have changed. Unfortunately for them, not following that leadership that they did offer us back in the day. I am since now retired, and in my retirement, I am disabled. I have found pride as a source where I can be an advocate. When I was young, my father knew that I was a little different, a tomboy at least to say, and he taught me everything he knew. I knew at age 3 that I was different. I didn't know what that was, being raised in a rural part of the state and with the Catholic faith, but I knew I was a little different. But I oppressed all those feelings until I got out of school in '85. So I've seen a lot. I wasn't necessarily involved with the AIDS epidemic that was out there in the '80s, and that horrible period of time in our nation, in our community. But now, being with Central Arkansas Pride for the last 11 years of its 14 years of existence, I've been able to take some of that time and become an activist at our capital in Little Rock. Central Arkansas Pride started by a group of individuals. You see a lot of grassroots organizations throughout the South, and Central Arkansas Pride was no different. Back in the 80s, we marched on Markham Street with bags on our heads, paper bags, because people were fearful of losing their jobs, their incomes, their livelihoods. So we've seen a lot of progress since then. It's not to say it's easy, but we're going to do the work. Unfortunately, in the South, we are the least funded states in the country for HIV and LGBT initiatives, nonprofits. So we work through a lot of partnerships. As a nonprofit, I rely on other nonprofits like Arkansas Raps, the Queer Collective, Intransitive, and we do a lot of amazing work with very limited funding. So for those folks that are out there that are feeling the need to be a little generous, arpride.org, email me at Dolores at arkansasarpride.org. But this is challenges that we're facing across the South, but across the country.
Yeah. So, what is kind of the state of affairs in Arkansas now? I know that, like a lot of more conservative states, and especially a lot of states across the South, there have been legislative initiatives in recent years, especially aimed at the transgender community in particular, but also at sort of LGBTQ rights more broadly. Kind of what's going on, and how would you, we're 10 years now past the Obergefell decision. What's happened in Arkansas in those 10 years?
Well, in the last few years, we've seen an increase of anti-LGBTQ legislation come through. And at first, we were very successful against that because we rallied the community. When the drag bills were first introduced about 3-4 years ago, we were able to rally at the Capitol there in Little Rock, and we were able to gather various members of the community and show the legislators that the nonsense of this bill, the nonsense that drag and the performance arts are everywhere. Miss Doubtfire, there's so many programs, Rocky Horror, that, gender is part of the art, part of the entertainment. And we also showed them the economic piece of it, how it would affect if you banned these movies, if you banned theater across the state. And we were able to defeat that bill. We had the entertainers for the Miss Gay America pageant that was originated here in Little Rock by Norman Jones from Discovery. So with about, I would say, 100 performers that were in town for that pageant, and then just various leadership across Central Arkansas, the nonprofits that are LGBT, we were able to defeat that bill. So we have had some success with defeating bills. Now, recently, we're being attacked again. This year at our Capitol was a fiscal session. This coming spring, it will be a legislative session where bills will be introduced um, to attack us. But as a role model, Georgia and Kentucky both were able to defeat LGBT anti-bills this past year. So we are using those models. We are already advocating, organizing, and collectively coming together to train folks how to reach out to their representatives and to be at the Capitol to hear their voices heard. So part of our Pride Fest this year on Friday, October 16th, you're all invited to come over. It's a 3-day street festival there on Capitol Avenue, and I'll tell you that story about how we got there last year. We are having workshops, Kansas for autonomy, and we're fighting for health rights. And also, the thing is, your voice can be heard for whatever issue you want, and that's what we want is our doctors, our lawyers, our moms, our priests, our bankers, our retail, our hospitality folks, because, we're everywhere. We just don't pop out of the closet in June and then go back. No, we live, we breathe, we are talented, we are an economic force that the state needs to realize that these bills are affecting. For the young folks, I think anywhere from 25 to 30% of the youth are identifying somewhere amongst our beautiful umbrella. So the kids are being educated, and we're here for their journeys because, that changes in time. But we're very excited to be fighting this fight, preparing. I guess we're excited to prepare before this. Whenever your rights are being debated from one, election to another, it's very harmful when you have people vote in favor of bills that are hurtful. We currently live in a very red state, but last year we were in legislative session and we were talking about restroom bills again for the third time. And we've been able to beat that restroom bill that we can use the restroom that we identify as. But this past year, we were not that successful. We were very blessed to have Miss Majors, who was at Stonewall back in 1969, along with Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Riviera. They resided here in the state in Little Rock. And Miss Majors was at the end of her experience here on Earth, and in a wheelchair she came and she talked about, as a transgender woman, why it's so important to have the restrooms open for us to use as we feel needed, And when a legislative committee chair laughed at her and several other of us, not paying attention to why just going to the restroom is important. I mean, come on. We got fired up, and I told my team that we were moving our street festival from across the river into Capitol. We are a 3-block street festival that is ADA accessible, right in front of the Capitol from Chester to Pulaski Street. So we made that bold move, limited money, but we made it happen through our partnerships. So we were very excited to have 6 hours of Arkansas LGBT artists, which range from drag performers, theater groups. We had bands, we had vocalists, spoken word, instrumentalists. It was a beautiful experience to have Arkansas talent fill that stage. We had 130 vendors. We had 2 food courts. We had an area, all-age fun area that had silent disco. So I was very honored to have Eve Keller from USA Pride's, their co-leader here, to help me with the introduction. We actually had interfaith leaders lead us in a prayer for healing, not only for us as a community, the LGBT community, but for the nation, because we need to be healed from this great divide and hate that's taking us over. And, the LGBT community has always been at the forefront of rights and live as you wish, So we were able to make that bold move, and we marched down Capitol. And I will be very proud to say that we had the No Kings people involved. The No Kings March was our anchor to the parade. And those folks here in Little Rock, they fight for everyone's rights.
Right.
Veterans' rights, healthcare rights, voters' rights, LGBT community. So we were able to get a lot of new folks into Pride, which was very exciting to have first timers amongst our allies come to Pride because they will march right through it. And it was a huge addition, very successful. We did it with peace, joy, and resilience.
And right outside the Capitol.
Right outside in front of the Capitol. And, we're nonpartisan, with your party, believe what you want. But in the end of the game, we're all equal. And let's treat each other as equals, from our hairstyles to the bathroom we want to use, to the ID that we have on our driver's license and where we play sports. What harm does that do to let each individual live as they deem fit in their journey here?
So what are you seeing? You talked about younger people definitely are more likely to identify somewhere on the LGBTQ under the umbrella. Are you seeing that there? What is the difference between maybe younger people who come out to events or protests or, all of your different activities and the older generations? What are you seeing from the Gen Zs out there?
Well, we do have a youth leadership academy with Central Arkansas Pride. We partner with the Central Arkansas Queer Collective because with getting kids out, youth with their parents, it's very important that, we support the parents that are supporting the kids. And that was one of the main reasons I volunteered for the first time, is when I saw that parent come out and wanted to support their child but didn't know quite how to do it. So they came out to Pride. So we're very honored to work with the Queer Collective here with support groups here in Central Arkansas and also Intransitive that has support groups for the youth and their parents. But the youth are they are a unique group, and they have all the information that we didn't have growing up, and they know it's okay. But let's look at the political climate. They're seeing that the adults cannot play fair. So they need our support more than ever as folks that are in the movement, that we do give them programming and we listen to their voices because they're brilliant. I learn from them every day, just their talents, their thought process that they have. And actually, that is what I am doing currently, is we are recruiting younger directors that are in their 20s and 30s to be a part of the next step for Pride Fest, for Central Arkansas Pride, to have their voices, their talents shared because they're brilliant. They have so much more information at their fingertips because of the web.
Yeah, and I was you mentioned Norman Jones earlier, and Norman Jones died sometime in the last year, right?
Yes.
And we actually did an obituary on the show because I was really not aware of his work and everything that he had done. I was really impressed by that. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the place of Arkansas. Like, I think that it may not surprise people that Arkansas would have, an LGBTQ organization. I mean, pretty much every place in the country does. But I don't know that Arkansas would be a place that Little Rock would be a place people would think of as having been an important center of real LGBTQ activity, pride, promotion with the pageant and everything. So can you just talk a little bit about Arkansas's role overall?
Well, I will try to speak to it as best I can. I'm not a historian, but I have a little knowledge of that growing up in the 80s, which, for some folks, yes, I am ancient. But no, Norman Jones was a brilliant individual. They were raised in South Arkansas, moved to the city. They were a Navy veteran. and they love to highlight the female impersonation pageants. And Discovery was started and it's been at different locations back in the 70s, mid-70s. And Norman broke a lot of stereotypes with having his bar open in Little Rock, working with the local government. Also, being licensed to operate a bar. But they were very successful. And I believe it was like they're celebrating like their 52nd year, I think 53rd year. Don't hold me to that. As the Miss Gay America pageant. With his passing last year, the pageant has traded hands to some individuals that's going to carry it forward. But here in Little Rock, it's always been a staple of our nightlife with Discovery and then his sister club, Trinity, where they had stages and promoted drag every single weekend. I'll tell you, our drag community are our superheroes because they offer a place with our clubs, a safe place that, people attend on the weekends. And you can witness the incredible talents of our drag artists from their pageantry, their gowns, and just their art, singing, how they lip sync, different songs. It's a brilliant art form, and they do it for the love of the art, for love of community. It's a huge staple as a safe place every single weekend. Yeah, Pride comes and goes once a year. Currently, right now in Arkansas, we have 14 cities celebrating Pride this year. 14, and that's incredible. Some of them are well established, like Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville, and Dixon. They've been around 24 years. Little Rock Black Pride here has been in business for 23 years, I believe. We're relatively young, 14 years in, but there's some small pop-ups, like in Fort Smith, Jess's House, which supports the youth, is revitalizing a pride there. Jonesboro, all the corners of the state are covered. At the end of the month, during, Stonewall, on the 27th and 28th, Fayetteville, the north corner, and in the Southern Magnolia Pride, will be, in Hot Springs, will be having prides, and, any kid will be within an hour's drive to go to a pride, which is incredible. These kids can say, hey, Mom, Dad, hey, I need to leave for an hour, go to town. And they can experience their first pride. And to see the kids on the side of the parade just in tears, just crying, because they're seeing is they see people like themselves. They see adults supporting them. It really does save lives.
All right. Great. Well, and we will definitely link to your website in the show notes, and people can get all the information there. Well, thanks so much for talking, and I promise I'm going to come to Little Rock and visit one of these days. So
please do.
I'll give you a shout.
Yeah, and if anyone would like to help sponsor Pride Fest, because it does take money, and here in the South, we are some of the least funded states for funding across the nation. We're kind of forgotten being rural, and so if anyone would like to sponsor us, SPONSOR, sponsor at arpride.org. We're always open and willing to work with you to get your logo out on the work that we do. We are seen nationally. I was just inducted into the Hall of Fame for the United States Association of Prides for the work that we've done in the community, and I will also be presenting at World Pride in Amsterdam in August, because the work being seen that we're doing here, and it's not just me, it's the organization, but it's the community as a whole.
Right.
We strive to work together and serve the communities that we serve together, and that's what Arkansas Pride Fest does. We bring everyone together with peace, joy, and resilience, because the divide has got to stop. And it takes a village. We're so talented, and we need people to see how talented we are, and love to have everyone out. Come visit. It's a 3-day event. Friday's workshops at the Capitol with a party afterwards where we're training folks how to use their voice in legislative session. Saturday will be Pride Fest from 11 to 6. There's a couple after parties that are sanctioned by us and with our partners. So it's a lot of fun that night. And then we'll have brunch on Sunday. And we will have some amazing entertainers. And we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming legislative session. Being October, it's past the deadline to vote, which is October 3rd because of the national elections in November. But it's really important that we do register to vote to change our leadership that we currently have that's not listening to our voices. So, Jess, I really thank you so much for having us on the show today to spread the word.
Thank you so much.
And for everyone that's in maybe some situations that are not the safest, the tide will change. There are people fighting for you. For the youth, yes, the old timers got you in this situation. We will change that situation. Everything changes with time. So bear with us. Find your community. Call the hotlines if you need. But you're so valuable. We need you. So please, reach out to someone. Find your organization. If I can help, please reach out to Central Arkansas Pride.
All right. Well, those are great words, and thanks again.
You're welcome, Jess. Anytime.
The Legend of Georgia McBride is a comedy by Florida-born playwright Matthew Lopez, first performed in 2014. It tells the tale of a down-on-his-luck Elvis impersonator who finds a new professional path and a new sense of himself by performing in a drag show at a local Florida bar. It's in the midst of a 2-week run at the Five and Dime Theater Company in Jacksonville, appropriate for the start of Pride Month. Georgia McBride was the fourth of Lopez's produced works. It was followed in 2018 by the widely acclaimed play The Inheritance, a reimagining of E.M. Forster's Howard's End set among a group of gay men in New York early in the AIDS epidemic. The Inheritance won multiple Tony and Drama Desk awards, including Best Play from both, and cemented Lopez's place as one of the major American playwrights of his generation. A gay writer who grew up in Panama City, Florida, and graduated from the University of South Florida, Lopez has spent the last 2 decades tackling complex issues from a variety of perspectives. His first play, The Whipping Man, is about 2 formerly enslaved men encountering their former master after the Civil War. Reverberation, which debuted in 2015, is about the impact of anti-gay and domestic violence. But Lopez can have a lighter touch, too. He co-wrote the musical adaptation of the classic film Some Like It Hot, which was a Broadway smash in 2022. And he moved into film directing in 2023 with an Amazon adaptation he wrote of the novel Red, White, and Royal Blue, about a love affair between the son of an American president and a British prince. He is currently reportedly working on a film adaptation of another book, Leading Men, which tells the story of the relationship between another gay Southern playwright, Tennessee Williams, and his lover, Frank Merlot. Meanwhile, it's worth noting the ongoing work of the Five and Dime Theater Company, which is staging the current run of Georgia McBride. The independent Jacksonville company brings adventurous works to Florida's largest city. The Five and Dime was founded in 2011 and became known for staging plays in unconventional venues. In 2017, it moved into its own permanent space on Adams Street in downtown Jacksonville, but then moved back out again in 2021. The current show is being produced at the Florida Ballet Theater. Other plays tackled by the company this season include the racial drama American Son and the complex character study I Am My Own Wife, about a trans woman in East Berlin during the Cold War. And that wraps us up for this week. Remember, the Progressive South is a nonprofit enterprise, and you can find information about supporting us on our website, theprogressivesouth.org. You can also reach out to me directly at jmayshark@theprogressivesouth.org. Thanks to our friends in Bark for our theme music, and to Lord Seth the Libertarian for his production work at Barbarian Productions. And thanks to you for listening. We'll talk to you soon.